Minma stretched her hand and passed some powers in form of a golden light to Ada. The light didn't just shimmer, it danced like a living flame, spiraling from her palm into Ada's chest. It was warm, not just on her skin, but deep in her spirit, like the embrace of a mother long lost. Then she asked her gently, "Open your eyes." Ada blinked slowly, like someone waking from a long dream. "You have just received the power to heal wounds," Minma continued, her voice echoing like a song across the river breeze. "Wounds of the body and of the heart." Ada's heart pounded in her chest. The river shimmered with light, as if the heavens themselves were bearing witness to this sacred gift. "You will be able to heal all manner of sicknesses and diseases," the mermaid said. "Whenever someone is in pain, your touch will bring comfort." Ada's hands trembled. She looked at them. They looked like the same hands that once scrubbed the floors of her father's compound, that once wiped her own tears after beatings and insults, but now they held something divine. "I will never forget you, Arata," Minma said softly. That name, Arata, the name the mermaids gave her, the name of strength and transformation. The winds of change had swept through Umak village. They didn't blow softly, they howled like drums, announcing a queen's return. Ada now walked with quiet dignity. Her steps were steady, no longer uncertain. The same path she had walked with tears and humiliation, she now walked as one chosen by the gods. Her name had traveled beyond Dumke's borders, carried on the tongues of travelers, traders, and pilgrims. Stories of her miracles spread like wildfire, from the lips of the old to the ears of the unborn. And yet, no one truly knew where her powers came from. The villagers whispered in the night. Some said she had touched the sky, others said she had eaten from the tree of spirits, but none of them knew the truth, that her gift was born not just from a mermaid's touch, but from the pain of survival, from the scars that shaped her spirit. Even the king had not dared to ask. He simply sent his messengers with offerings, baskets of kola nuts, fine robes, goats and chickens, all in gratitude for the blind man who now saw, the cripple who now walked. All that mattered was that the sick walked again, the blind saw again, and the broken found relief in her hands. Her hands, those gentle, worn hands, now held the power of life, power not used to destroy, but to rebuild, to comfort, to restore. She worked side by side with Debia Nawoki, the village's old healer. He had once been her critic, a skeptic of her strange abilities, but now he was her trusted partner and mentor. Together, they blended tradition and mystery, the old ways of herbs and roots, and Ada's touch that carried a light not even she fully understood. People came from neighboring villages, men with broken bones, women with barren wombs, children covered in sores. Some crossed rivers, others trekked through forests. They came with their sick, their lame, their hopeless. Despite all the recognition, Ada remained humble. She always bowed when elders greeted her. She still shared meals with the poor. She still fetched water when the stream ran low. Her heart had not changed, only her hands. Whenever she was at home, she played with her stepbrother Chudy. He was a lively boy, curious and full of laughter. His tiny hands would tug at her wrapper, begging her to play a game, or chase him around the compound. Ada, once forbidden from even speaking to him, now shared gentle moments of joy with the child she once feared to approach. His mother now allowed her to play with him, since her father's return. Though Oyoma's words were still sharp at times, something in her had changed. Perhaps fear, perhaps Ida didn't care why. She simply embraced every opportunity to laugh with Chudy, to build the bond she was once denied. Since her father's return, Ada began to build a brotherly bond with him for the first time since he was born. She learned his favorite games, the way he liked his food, and how he curled into a ball when he slept. Chudy had become more than just a child in the house. He had become a symbol of peace in her life, a fragile peace she never thought possible. As for her father, he remained mute. He would sit under the tree near the family compound, his eyes staring into the distance. Ada had tried everything, her hands, her prayers, her healing chants, but the silence in him refused to lift. He just could not be healed, and deep in her heart, she knew healing strangers would never truly fill the emptiness left by the silence of her father. Each time she healed a broken limb or cured a fevered child, she would glance at her father's empty gaze and feel the ache return. Still, she poured herself into her work. Every morning, she was at the healing sanctuary before the sun fully rose. She prepared herbs with Debia Navoki, chanted blessings over steaming calabashes, and laid hands on the sick with gentleness only pain could teach. 2 years passed, seasons changed, children grew taller, and everything was moving on smoothly in Umake, until it came, the strange illness. It didn't come with thunder or warning. It crept in like a shadow, unnoticed at first. It began with one child. A soft, eerie cry broke through the village one afternoon. A woman suddenly screamed from her hut. It was sharp, desperate, like the cry of a mother watching her world collapse. Ran out of her hut, barefoot, stumbling, her wrapper slipping from her shoulders. Her face was soaked in tears as she held a limp child in her arms. Her feet kicked up dust as she sprinted toward the healing sanctuary. "Help me. Somebody help me," she wailed, her voice cracked with pain, and those nearby rushed out of their homes. Farmers dropped their hoes. Children stopped their games. Everyone turned toward the source of the cry. Ada and Nawoki rushed out to meet her. The child, a boy of barely 5, had a high fever. His tiny chest rose and fell with shallow gasps. His eyes were bloodshot, his lips cracked and dry, his body shook violently, as if the sickness was clawing at his soul from the inside. Ada placed her trembling hand on his chest, feeling the heat seep into her bones. "Bring him inside," she said, her voice tight. Debia prepared herbs swiftly, his face grim and focused. They moved with urgency, a silent understanding between them born from years of practice. The sanctuary felt like a battlefield now, the drums of war replaced by pounding hearts and the cries of desperate parents. Hours later, the boy opened his eyes, weak but alive. The crowd that had gathered erupted in cheers. Mothers wept, fathers fell to their knees in thanks. Ada allowed herself a small breath of relief. But deep down, something inside her stirred uneasily. The relief was short-lived. By sunset, more parents came running. One by one, they arrived, holding their children, screaming, begging, collapsing at the sanctuary's gates, and all the children had the same symptoms as the first child: bloodshot eyes, cracked lips, shivering bodies, fever that refused to break. The sickness didn't come like a wave. It came like a flood, sudden and unforgiving. Every day, the number of sick children doubled. Soon, the sanctuary became a battlefield, not against soldiers, but against something darker, something invisible. Ada and Debia worked tirelessly, day and night, barely sleeping, barely breathing, their eyes red, their hands sore from constant motion. The sanctuary reeked of herbs, sweat, and desperation. But the more they healed, the more the sickness multiplied. It was as if the sickness had a mind of its own, as if it fed off their efforts. It crept into every hut, every home. No one was safe. Ada didn't say it out loud, but she feared the worst: a curse, a punishment, a darkness too deep for her gift to touch. But she couldn't stop. She wouldn't, not until the last child was healed. Then the storm came to Ada's own doorstep. That night, the wind howled like a grieving widow. Trees bent as if mourning something they couldn't name. The moon was hidden behind thick, angry clouds, and a strange unease hung in the air like smoke. Ada had gone home that evening, intending only to rest. Just a short nap, she had told herself. Her body was weary, her soul heavier than ever. The sanctuary had been full all day. So many children, so many cries, so many hands reaching out to her, desperate for comfort. She had barely closed her eyes when it happened. "Ada." The voice tore through the compound like thunder. "Ozia, son Chudy, something's wrong with him." Ada's eyes snapped open. Her heart froze for a moment before it began to pound violently in her chest. She didn't wait to grab her shoes or cover herself properly. She ran, feet pounding the earth. She dashed into the hut. There he was, Chudy, her little brother, lying on the floor mat like a wilted flower, his body limp, his eyes closed, his lips a frightening shade of gray. Her father stood by, stiff and trembling, his eyes wide with terror. Her stepmother Oyoma was shaking the boy vigorously, her voice shrill and desperate. "Chudy, Chudy, please wake up." Ada had grown used to Chudy, despite his mother's bitterness. Despite all that had happened, she had grown to love him deeply. He had never harmed her. He was just a child with a wide smile, a boy who once giggled at her silly stories and shared his food with her in secret. She couldn't bear to see him like that, not him. Oyoma dropped to her knees, her head shaking as if the truth was too much for her spirit. Then, in a voice that shook the walls of the hut, she cried out to Ada, "Please, Ada, If I've ever offended you in any way, I'm sorry. Just save him, please." Her voice cracked with pain. Her hands clung to Ada's wrapper as tears streamed freely from her eyes. Her pride was gone, her bitterness forgotten. All that remained was a desperate mother. Ada's heart ached at the sight. She looked at the woman who had once cursed her, beaten her, made her beg for scraps, now broken, begging her for help. Without saying a word, Ada knelt beside Chudy. She reached out and placed her hand gently on his skin. Her fingers brushed his cheek, then his chest, searching for warmth, the warmth of life she had come to recognize in the hundreds of patients she had healed. But instead, she felt something else. Cold. A cold so deep it pierced her bones. It was not the cold of the night, nor the chill of fear. It was something unnatural. A stillness that whispered of curses and secrets. It chilled her to the bone. That night, Ada did everything she could. She whispered prayers her mother once taught her. She chanted the healing verses Minma had given her. She crushed sacred herbs between trembling fingers. She massaged his chest with blessed oils. She even sang the sacred song of the river. But nothing worked. Nothing. Her healing powers failed her. Tears filled her eyes. Not the quiet tears of sadness, but the hot, choking tears of frustration and fear. First her father. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't cure his silence. Now Chudy, lying helpless, weak, on the edge of death, and still, she couldn't help. Her gift, so powerful, so miraculous, felt useless now. Is my gift only for strangers? She asked herself in a voice that trembled like a reed in the wind. Does it mean I can't heal my own family? Her words echoed in the room like a prayer lost in the void. Later that night, Chudy was taken to the sanctuary hut. He was carried gently, wrapped in cloth, his tiny hands barely moving. The villagers stepped aside with solemn expressions. Some whispered prayers, others just watched silently, hearts heavy. In the sanctuary, the village Debia began to treat him with herbs and chants. His hands moved with practiced care, his face grim. Ada watched everything, standing beside them, but her soul felt far away. She had never felt more powerless. Part of her felt helpless. Another part felt cursed, determined not to give up. Ada made a decision, one that was both bold and dangerous. She would return to the river, even though it was forbidden at that hour. The sun at its peak, the waters restless. She didn't care. She knew her mermaid friend was gone. She had been told that Minma had returned to the deep, never to rise again. But she needed to try. She had to. Something in her heart screamed that the answer lay beneath those sacred waters. The next day at midday, when the sun stood high in the sky and the earth baked under its glare, Ada quietly made her way back to the river. Her feet moved with purpose, her heart heavy with hope and fear. She reached the riverbank. The trees whispered in the wind, and the water shimmered as if it recognized her presence. Ada dropped to her knees. Tears already stung her eyes. Her hands trembled, and then, from the depths of her soul, she began to sing the sacred song Minma had taught her. Her voice cracked, but she kept singing. The melody carried through the silence, swallowed by the wind, embraced by the waves. For a moment, nothing happened, just the sound of the river. Then, suddenly, the water began to churn. Ripples turned into whirlpools. The air grew thick with energy. A soft, otherworldly glow rose from the depths. And there she was, Omiri the mother mermaid, her graceful form towering over the river like a queen from another world. Her gaze sharp, ancient, unreadable. A power beyond human understanding radiated from her. Ada went on her knees. She bowed her head, her forehead to the ground, her voice soft and trembling. Greetings, O Omiri, the great river goddess. I humble myself before your presence. Ada's voice was small against the rushing wind and the rippling waves. Please, forgive me for disturbing you. She kept her eyes low, her body trembling with reverence and fear. The towering presence of Omiri the mother mermaid was overwhelming. She wasn't just a creature of legend. She was a force older than memory, a presence that turned the mighty river into her throne. Our children are falling sick in their numbers. Mother, her voice cracked, the burden of the village weighing on every word. Thanks to my healing gift, the Debia and I have cured some children, she continued, her hands clenched tightly in her lap, but the sickness keeps spreading. It's like it doesn't want to stop. Ada paused, her chest rising and falling in silent pain. My little stepbrother, he is affected too. She swallowed hard, tears forming again. I tried to heal him, like I healed the others, But I couldn't. My hands, they didn't work. The mother mermaid listened silently. Her face was unreadable, regal and calm, as if carved from the soul of the river itself. But her eyes, ancient and wise, glowed softly, reflecting Ada's trembling image. I don't understand it, Ada said, almost pleading. He's just a child, an innocent one. Why won't my power work on him? She paused, her voice now barely a whisper. Please, help me. The mother mermaid remained silent for a moment longer, her gaze never leaving Ada. The river around them hummed softly, almost like it too was listening. Then finally, she spoke. My child, you have a good heart. The words were gentle, wrapping around Ada like a warm shawl. I am so happy that my daughter gave you this gift, Omiri continued. But you must understand, this is no ordinary illness. She floated closer, the water parting softly around her as if in worship. This sickness was born from sins of the past, and spread by careless hearts. Ada's eyes widened. Her heart skipped. If you wish to save them, the mermaid said firmly, you must act now. Without another word, Omiri extended her hands. Between them appeared a small glowing calabash, filled with water that shimmered like moonlight. The light it gave off wasn't harsh, it was soothing. A healing kind of glow that seemed to breathe. Pour this into a big water pot filled with water. The mermaid instructed. Every child, sick or not, must take a spoonful of the water. Ada reached for the calabash, her hands shaking. As her fingers touched it, warmth spread through her chest, a reminder of hope. It will cleanse the curse from their blood, the goddess said. Ada held it tightly, as if it were the last piece of salvation. But then, Omiri's tone changed. It darkened, grew heavier. But hear me well, Ada. The wind stopped. The water stilled. Even the birds in the trees seemed to fall silent. Some illnesses lie in the bloodline. Some wounds cannot be healed by water or touch. Healing to such people can only come after revelations. Ada's heart skipped again. Revelations, she whispered. But before she could ask what that meant, the goddess was gone. Just like that. The glow faded. The water stilled. The wind resumed. The river looked once again like an ordinary body of water. But Ada knew nothing about that moment was ordinary. She held the glowing calabash tightly to her chest, as if her life and Chudy's depended on it. Because it did, she turned back toward the village, her legs moving quickly, her spirit torn between hope and dread. She did exactly as told. That evening, the king himself was moved when he heard of Ada's journey to the river. He wasted no time. He sent his palace messenger to run through every corner of the village, shouting the royal announcement, let every parent bring their child to the sanctuary. Whether they are sick or healthy, the healer Ada has prepared the sacred water. Let every child drink one scoop. And they came, mothers with babies on their backs, fathers carrying their twins, grandparents leading toddlers by the hand. Some came with tears of fear, others with cautious hope. Inside the sanctuary, Ada poured the glowing water from the calabash into a large clay pot already filled with fresh water from the river. As the calabash emptied, the entire pot began to glow softly, a sign that the miracle was real. One by one, children were brought forward. One by one, they were given a scoop of the sacred water. Some coughed, others shivered. Then, slowly, they began to heal. The fevers broke, the coughs stopped, the color returned to their cheeks. A miracle. Every single child healed, except one, Chudy, Ada's stepbrother. The moment he drank the water, Ada watched with bated breath, her hands folded, her heart thudding like a drum. But nothing changed. His body remained cold, his breathing shallow, his small hands limp at his sides. He was the only child untouched by Ada's miracle water. The only one. The days that followed were the hardest Ada had ever known. The village rejoiced. They celebrated the return of health to their children. They sang her name. They offered gifts. Some even wept at her feet. But Ada's heart remained in chains. Inside her father's compound, Chudy lay still. His breaths were shallow, his skin pale. His once playful eyes, the ones that sparkled when he saw her, now stared blankly into nothingness. Ada sat by his side every night. She held his frail hand, whispering stories, singing lullabies. Her voice wavered, but she kept singing, over and over, trying to will him back from the edge. She tried healing him again, and again, and again. But her touch had no effect at all. Earlier that day, she had healed an old man with a failing heart. With just one hand on his chest, but Chudy remained locked in the arms of an illness only he bore, his mother. Oyoma was no longer the bitter woman Ada once knew. She had become a ghost of herself. She refused food. She refused sleep. Her eyes were always red, her clothes unkempt. She would sit for hours beside Chudy, whispering his name. Her cries at night echoed through the compound like a broken drum, loud, painful, and without rhythm. "I can't afford to lose my son," she would scream between sobs, and Ada, she couldn't bear to hear it. Too, became unhappy. He no longer sat beneath the tree with his vacant eyes. He sat instead by Chudy's side, feeding him herbs prepared by Debia Nowoki, his strong hands now trembling, his face hollow. His silence spoke of guilt, sorrow, and helplessness. Ada watched them both, the mother who had once hated her, and the father she had once adored, now both broken. And she wondered, why? Why couldn't she heal Chudy? He had never been part of his mother's wickedness. He had never caused her pain. He was innocent, and yet, here he was, suffering. Then one night, as she sat beside him, exhausted and hopeless, she remembered the mermaid's words. Some wounds lie in the bloodline. Some cannot be healed by water or touch. Healing too, such people can only come after some revelations. Ada's breath caught in her throat. It began to make sense. The mermaid had not spoken in riddles. She had spoken the truth. The sickness in Chudy, it wasn't ordinary. It was tied to secrets too. The past to the bloodline, and suddenly, she knew what she had to do. That night, the moon hung low in the sky, its pale light casting ghostly shadows across the compound. A strange hush had settled over Umake, as if the village itself was holding its breath. Ada stood outside Oyoma's hut for a long time. Her heart was pounding like a drum in her chest. Her palms were slick with sweat. Every instinct told her to turn back, to let the past rest. But something deeper, something stronger pushed her forward. This wasn't just about Chudy anymore. This was about truth, about the heavy silence that had poisoned their home for years, about her mother's death, about her own pain, about justice. She pulled back the curtain and stepped into the hut. The smell of burning herbs lingered in the air. A clay lamp flickered near the corner, and there, on a worn mat, sat Oyoma, no longer the proud, bitter woman who once barked orders and carried herself like a queen. She was hunched, her head bent low. Tears streamed silently down her face as she stared at Chudy lying motionless on the mat beside her. Ada swallowed the lump in her throat. She stepped forward and knelt gently before her. "Mama," her voice was soft, almost broken. "I know you are hurting. I know you love Chudy, and I do too." Oyoma didn't look up. Ada's voice grew firmer. "But some sicknesses are deeper than what the eyes can see, or the hands can touch." She took a deep breath. "Sometimes, the past refuses to stay silent, and when it does, it punishes the innocent." Oyoma's shoulders, tensed. Ada leaned in closer, her eyes pleading. "Please, if there's anything from the past that you have kept hidden, maybe now is the time to speak." A long silence followed. Oyoma didn't blink. Her lips trembled, but she remained quiet. "For Chudy's sake," Ada whispered, "I think it's the only way to help him." Suddenly, Oyoma's head snapped up. Her eyes were red, swollen, and full of fire. "I have nothing to confess, Ada," she snapped, her voice raw. "Nothing." Her chest heaved with every word. "You think I would curse my own son? You think I would bring this upon myself?" She rose to her knees, her hands shaking. "You want to blame me for everything that happens in this house. You think I'm a monster, don't you?" Ada didn't flinch. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't back away. "I swear by the gods," Oyoma cried, "I have done nothing, nothing." Then she broke down again, collapsing back onto the mat, her body shaking with sobs. But Ada remained kneeling. Her voice, though soaked in emotion, remained strong. "If you keep lying, your son will die, Mama." The words hit like thunder. "The sickness, it's not of the body, it's deeper. Chudy is suffering from the sins of his parents." Oyoma's sobs grew louder. "I beg you," Ada whispered, "as a woman, as a mother, tell the truth." Just then, a shadow moved in the doorway. At her father, he stood there, silent as ever, his face unreadable. He said nothing because he couldn't, but his eyes were fixed on Oyoma. They burned with a strange intensity. Not anger, not hate, but something more complex. Something that said, "Speak, please, speak." Oyoma looked around. She saw Ada's tears, Amadi's silent gaze, Chudy's dying form, And finally, something inside her broke. She trembled violently. Her lips moved, but no sound came. Then, like a dam bursting, she fell to the ground, wailing, "Enough. Enough. I will speak. I will speak the truth. I buried all these years. I will confess what I did." The room stilled. Even the air froze. Ada stared at her, heart pounding. Her hands trembled. She had waited her whole life for this moment. Oyoma's chest heaved, her face twisted in shame and grief. Then, she began. "I met Amadi for the first time 11 years ago," she whispered. "And from that day, my world was never the same." Her voice trembled as she spoke. "It was market day in Uma. I came from my village Odawama, with my elder brother Okik. We were only there to buy yam tubers." She paused, her eyes distant, lost in the memory. "But then, I saw him." She looked at Amadi, her lips quivering. Everyone had heard of him, the famous farmer from Umakwe. They said his yams were the biggest, his cassava the whitest, his farm the envy of the region. She gave a small, broken laugh. "But no, one warned me that Amadi was more than just a farmer. He was a man carved from charm and danger, a man whose smile could melt even the hardest heart." Ada stared at her in shock. "He spoke to us politely, helped us choose the best yams, even carried them to our cart. I left the market with more than yams that day." She looked down up, left with his face stamped into my soul. Ada's breath quickened. "I tried to forget him," Oyoma continued. "He was married, above my reach. But fate had other plans." Her voice turned cold. "We returned to the market a few weeks later. And this time, it was he who noticed me. He called me the beautiful girl from Odawama." She gave a sad smile. "No man had ever looked at me like that." The room was dead silent. "We started meeting in secret," she confessed. "In the shadows of the market, he would sneak into my village at night, into my hut, whisper promises." Ada's face tightened. "He said he was expanding his farm, but he was only coming for me." She shook her head slowly, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I was foolish. I believed him. I thought I was his joy, his peace." Then her voice grew hard. "One night, after he had made love to me, he said he wanted me to bear his child. He said, 'Nika, your mother could no longer conceive. He needed a son.'" A silence followed. "I told him if I were to carry his child, he had to marry me." Her fingers twisted together in shame. "But the weeks passed, and I remained in the shadows, a secret." She sniffled. "That was when hatred took root in my heart." Ada's hands curled into fists. "I stopped seeing him as a lover. I saw him as a prize, a man I had to own." She wiped her nose, roughly. "So, I went to Mama E, the witch doctor." Gasps echoed in the room. "She gave me a calabash, told me what to do." Oyoma's voice grew hollow. "That night, at the crossroads between Odawama and Umake, I called Nika's name 3 times, and poured the charm into the wind." A single tear slid down Ada's cheek. "A few weeks later, your mother fell ill. No one could cure her. No healer could help." She choked on her sob. "I knew it was my doing. And I smiled to myself." Ada's hands trembled. Her body was frozen in disbelief. "And then, Nika died. And just as I planned, Amadi married me." She looked up at Amadi now, the shame in her face unmistakable. "And you know the rest." Her confession ended, but the silence that followed was unbearable. It was the kind of silence that made your skin crawl, that pulled your heart into your throat, that begged for someone to speak, scream, cry, anything, but no one moved. Silence. It clung to the air like smoke after a fire, the kind of silence that didn't soothe but strangled. Oyoma was still on the ground, her head bowed, her tears soaking the mat. Her body trembled like a leaf caught in a storm. Around her, the sanctuary walls seemed to lean in, as if listening. But Ada, she sat frozen, her breath shallow, her face pale, her fingers curled tightly in her lap, nails digging into her palms. She stared at Oyoma, but it was as if she didn't see her. Her eyes were glazed, her mind spinning. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "You killed her." Head lifted slowly, her lips parted, as if to speak, but no words came. "You took my mother's life," Ada whispered again, her voice gaining strength, cracking with every word. "You made me motherless." Oyoma crawled forward, her face soaked with tears. "Please," she sobbed, "please forgive me. I was young, foolish, blinded." But Ada stood up suddenly, as if the ground beneath her had turned to fire. "You killed my mother," she screamed, her voice shattering the stillness. You made me a slave in the house she built. You beat me. You hated me. You starved me. Her chest heaved. Her hands trembled. And all this time, you were the one who poisoned her. You, she broke down, her voice choking. How could you, Mama Oi? How could you? Her scream echoed through the sanctuary like thunder. Oyoma crawled on her knees, reaching for Ada's wrapper. She clung to it like a drowning woman reaching for driftwood. Forgive me. I was blinded by love, by pain. I didn't know what I was doing. I don't, Ada snapped, pulling her wrapper away. Don't touch me. Don't call me daughter. You are not my mother. Oyoma sobbed harder, falling face flat to the floor. I was a fool. I let jealousy burn my heart. I regret it every day. Ada turned away from her, hands on her head, trying to contain the storm inside her chest. Then slowly, her eyes turned to him, Amadi, her father, the man she had once called her hero. He stood in the doorway still, his mouth slightly open, his hands trembling by his sides. For the first time, his eyes were filled with something human, grief, shame, heartbreak. Ada walked toward him, her steps heavy, each footfall echoing in the silence. When she stood before him, she looked up, and what she saw shattered her. Papa, her voice was soft now, broken. I thought you were the best father. Her lips trembled. You used to carry me on your back, tell me stories by the fire. Tears spilled freely. I thought you loved Mama. I thought you loved me. She shook her head slowly. But you were cheating on her. Her voice cracked. You were cheating on us. Amadi's eyes welled. His lips parted. But, as always, silence poured out. You betrayed her. You betrayed me. She stepped back, her body heaving. You were supposed to protect us, not destroy us. His silence hit harder than any words. Ada looked around at the sanctuary, at Chudy's lifeless form, at the woman who wept at her feet, and suddenly the air felt too thick, the room too small, the pain too large. I can't breathe. She stumbled backward. The walls seemed to close in. The candles flickered violently. Her heartbeat roared in her ears. She turned and ran, out of the sanctuary, out of the compound, out of the compound, out into the night. The air was sharp against her skin, but she didn't care. Her bare feet slapped the earth, dodging stones, roots, shadows, branches scratched her arms. The wind howled in her ears, but she ran, like a hunted thing, like a spirit, chased by sorrow. She didn't know where she was going. She didn't care. She just wanted to run until the pain stopped chasing her. She ran through the forest, past familiar trees, past the old well, past the whispering shadows, and finally, her legs gave way. She collapsed by the river, but not the river. Near Okiki. This was deeper, wilder, the river of the old gods. And there, under the rising sun, Ada wept. Not like a girl, but like a woman broken by truths too heavy for the heart. She wept for her mother. She wept for herself. She wept for the boy lying between life and death in a house filled with lies. And then, through her sobs, she began to sing the song Marinma had taught her. It came slowly at first, then stronger, clearer, as if the river itself remembered the tune. The waters began to ripple, then churn. Then glow. And from the depths, a form rose. Glowing. Graceful. Powerful. Mirin. Ma. Her mermaid friend, her sister. Her guardian. Ada gasped. Mirinma. She whispered the name like a prayer. The mermaid smiled, her long silver hair flowing like the river. Ada. Her voice was soft and musical. I have missed you, child of the river. Ada tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. Mirinma floated closer, her gaze full of ancient knowing. What brings tears to the heart of the healer? She asked gently. Ada crumbled again. Through choked sobs, she told her everything. The confession, the betrayal, the pain, the unbearable weight of her father's silence. Mirinma listened in silence, her face serene. And when Ada finished, the mermaid reached out and touched her cheek. My dear friend, she said, your heart carries more than it should. She paused, her voice now lower. But now that Oyoma has confessed, the chains are broken. Your touch can now heal Chudy. Ada's breath caught. The curse that held him is lifted. Only your hand can bring him back. Ada looked into the water. At her reflection. Her fingers trembled, and her heart twisted. After everything she did to me. Her voice was barely a whisper. She took my mother, my childhood, my home. Her jaw clenched. Why should I save the only thing she loves? Her fingers dug into the riverbank. Why shouldn't she feel the pain I felt? Her tears fell into the river. Pain, rage, grief, all tangled together. Mirinma said nothing. She simply looked at her, calm and eternal. I cannot tell you what to do, Ada, she said softly. The gift is yours. The choice is yours. She floated back slowly into the river. Ada was left alone, BAFTA with the CALABASH. With her. Reflection. With the most painful question of her life.